Today, we are going to tackle that one document that could literally save you thousands of dollars. But let's be honest, most of us have probably never read it. I'm talking about your insurance policy. We're going to show you how to find all the critical information without having to read all 60 pages. Okay, imagine this scenario. You found what looks like the perfect insurance for your business. The website looks amazing, the price is right, so you sign on the dotted line. A few months go by, something happens, and you need to make a claim, only to find out it's been denied. Turns out you were never actually covered for that one specific thing. This happens all the time, and the reason is usually buried deep in the fine print. So let's take a real-world example. Let's say you're a consultant. You're looking at two policies that seem pretty much identical. Insurer A covers injury and property damage, but look closely at that fine print. It excludes cover for professional advice. Now, if you're a consultant, giving advice is, well, it's your entire business. Insurer B, on the other hand, explicitly includes it. That one little sentence is the difference between having complete peace of mind and a policy that's basically useless when you need it most. So that leads us to the million-dollar question, right? How on earth are you supposed to spot these make-or-break details before he's paid your money and find yourself in a really tight spot? Well, the answer is in a document that you've probably been kind of ignoring. The key to everything is a little something called the PDS. You know, if you think of your insurance policy as a brand new, unexplored territory, then the PDS, that's your official treasure map. It shows you exactly where the gold is buried, but crucially, it also points out all the traps you need to avoid. So, what is it officially? It stands for Product Disclosure Statement. This is the legally binding contract that lays out the entire agreement between you and the insurer. It tells you exactly what you're covered for, what you're not, how much it's all going to cost, and what you need to do to hold up your end of the deal. The most important part, you have to read this before you buy. And that brings me to probably the most important rule of all. That glossy brochure, the snappy ad you saw online, even a summary from your broker, none of that is the actual contract. The PDS, and only the PDS, is the single source of truth. If there's ever a dispute, this is the document that everyone will refer back to. It's the final word. Okay, so I know a PDS can look, a little overwhelming at first glance. But the good news is, they pretty much all follow the same basic structure. So let's break down the key parts you really need to look for. So, inside every PDS, you're going to find these core sections. It'll lay out exactly what's covered, what your costs are, what your obligations are, the whole shebang. Seriously, think of it like the full instruction manual for your insurance policy. And here's a perfect example of a super useful, practical detail you'll find tucked away in there. Almost every policy has what's called a cooling off period. This is basically your get-out-of-jail-free card. If you buy a policy, take some time to read the PDS, and then realize, whoops, this isn't right for me, you usually have a window of about 14 to 30 days to cancel, no questions asked, and get your money back. All right, so I know exactly what you're thinking. This is all great, but who has the time to read a massive, boring legal document? And you know what? You're not wrong to feel that way. Which brings us to the main event, the shortcut. Yep, this is what we're up against. A typical PDS can easily be 40, 50, sometimes even 60 pages long. It's dense, it's dry, and let's face it, it was written by lawyers for lawyers. It's no wonder that most of us just cross our fingers, tick the box, and hope for the best. So with a document that big, where do you possibly begin? Well, thankfully, you don't have to start at page 1 and read to the end. There's a much, much smarter way to do this. Here it is. This is your 4-point PDS checklist. If you read absolutely nothing else, promise me you'll read these 4 sections. It's kind of like the 80-20 rule, right? By focusing on just these 4 areas, you're going to get 80% of the critical information you need. So what are they? Number 1, what's covered? Number 2, and this might be the most important, what's not covered? Number 3, the claims process. And number 4, your excess. And I really want to just double-click on that second point. The section on exclusions, or what's not covered, is where the insurance company protects itself. This is where you will find all of those potential gotchas and hidden traps we talked about earlier. Seriously, read this section, then read it again. So, let's pull all this together and recap the essentials. The good news is, you don't need a law degree to understand your policy. You just need a simple strategy. So here is your PDS power-up. First, remember the PDS is the absolute source of truth. It overrides any ad, any summary, any conversation you've had. Second, you don't need to read all 60 pages at once. Just be strategic. And finally, at a bare minimum, focus on those 4 key sections we talked about: what's covered, what's excluded, the claims process, and your excess. So we'll end on this thought. We've shown you that the PDS isn't some monster to be afraid of. It's just a map. And now that you know how to read that map, what are you going to discover buried in your own policy? Thanks for joining me for this explainer.